during NFL Week 12 this past weekend, the Jaguars got a really big win. They beat the Ravens 28-27. And the end of this game was really, really fun. The Ravens got a touchdown with 2 minutes and 2 seconds left. That gave them a 25-20 lead. So the Ravens had a 5-point lead. And then the Ravens went for 2 and got it to give them a 7-point lead, 27-20. That meant that Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars got the ball, down 7 points, 2 minutes, 2 seconds left on the clock, 1st and 10 on their own 25-yard line. And Trevor Lawrence, the former number 1 overall pick, led a 75-yard game-winning drive in a 2-minute drill. It was beautiful. It was awesome. In general, in this game, Trevor Lawrence looked really, really good. He was 29 for 37 passing, only 8 incomplete passes. By the way, I watched all of them. He pretty much only had 1 bad decision all game. Well done, Trevor. That's pretty awesome. So again, 29 for 37 passing, 321 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He did fumble twice. 1 fumble was a turnover. He was trying to make a play, scrambling, only had 1 hand on the football, got hit from behind, ball came out. That's a simple fix. You got to have 2 hands on the football. That's an easy thing to talk about in the film room. Now, the key here is that Trevor Lawrence led 2 really great, brilliant 75-yard touchdown drives in the fourth quarter. And Trevor was great in the final moments when it mattered most. And I would call this game a flash of brilliance for Trevor Lawrence. It's not all good. On that game-winning drive I talked about, got the ball 2 minutes left, 75 yards to go. He actually had a fumble. He started the drive off negatively. He had a fumble, lost a bunch of yards, got sacked, fumbled. He was lucky his team actually picked up the fumble. On a 3rd and 21, he threw for like 16 yards. They converted a 4th and 5. It wasn't pretty, but from that point on, it was incredible. Just big throw after big throw. And again, I go back to this. When it mattered most, Trevor Lawrence made a lot of big plays in this football game. And finally, I don't know if finally is the right word there, but this game felt like confirmation. Oh, yeah, this is why Trevor was drafted number 1 overall. He's gotten a lot of hate over the years, a lot of criticism this year. And I will admit, Trevor Lawrence has made mistakes. The team is 4-7, and part of why they haven't won more games is because Trevor has made mistakes and not been perfect this year. But week 12 against the Ravens, Trevor was outstanding. And this is why I always preach that you need to be patient with young quarterbacks. They need time to develop. Hey, if you want to give up on a quarterback in the first 3 years, they got to either be really immature or there's a better option available or they're just not that physically talented. I'm down with all that. But Trevor is really physically talented. He does show maturity. There isn't a better option I can think of for the Jacksonville Jaguars at quarterback. And I often say that you should wait to raise your expectations for a young quarterback until about the middle of year 3. I think you can even push that timeline back farther for Trevor Lawrence, given the fact that he had to endure an entire nightmare year last year being coached by Urban Meyer. There's no way that didn't throw off his development a little bit. And it's been really bizarre and frustrating seeing all the hot takes and all of the, I'll say it, strong opinions out there from people saying, Trevor's a bust. He should have been the number 1 overall pick. He's washed up. I'll be honest. Trevor's not that impressive as a leader. I think Trevor, there's a great video of him in the tunnel with his football team. Hey guys, let's do it. And it's like, oh yeah, I feel so motivated. I'm going to run through a brick wall. Not. Like, Trevor's not the most motivating character in the world. He's very monotone. I don't think I would connect with him very well as a human. But, man, a lot of people that criticize him have been very, very unfair. And I got to repeat the timeline. He had a whole year last year. Not only did he go to the Jacksonville Jaguars organization, he had Urban Meyer, a disaster as his head coach. Can we be a little bit patient? Can we be a little bit forgiving of Trevor Lawrence if he's learning how to play quarterback in the NFL with Doug Peterson as his head coach? I don't know. I'm not in a hurry to throw Trevor Lawrence away. Last year, everyone was saying he's the second coming of Andrew Luck. Suddenly now, if he's not perfect, he's a bust. And I just don't understand these dramatic back and forth and back and forth. I don't know. Like, you know how hard it was for me to stop kind of buying into Zach Wilson? Because I teach patience. It's really important to me to like, hey, let's give this quarterback every chance before we give up. Now, Zach Wilson, I thought, was really immature. Mike White did great in replacing him. I go, for now, there's a better option in New York, right? But I think it should take a lot more changes for a team or a fan base to give up on a quarterback. And it's really bizarre to me how quickly we just decide to give up, but without really, like, you know how many people gave up on Tua? I was even starting to doubt Tua. Tua himself was starting to doubt Tua. But Tua looks great now. You got to be patient with young quarterbacks. And I just repeat that it was really, really frustrating to me, the narrative about Trevor Lawrence that he couldn't play. Now, I want to give credit to Doug Peterson in this football game. I love the decision. The Jaguars were down 1 point, 26-27. They just had a really sweet touchdown drive in a 2-minute drill, 14 seconds left on the clock. And the Jaguars could have kicked the extra point to tie the game 27-27 and kind of decide to go to overtime. But they didn't do that. The Jaguars went for 2. They went for the win. They got it, and they won. And I like that decision even if it fails. Here's why. It reminds me of the USC-Utah game earlier this year. By the way, the reason why USC has one loss in college football is because Utah did exactly that. They went for 2 at the end of the game. They're like, we're not going to overtime. And I think it says a lot of, you're giving respect to your opponent, actually, when you're like, I don't want to go to overtime with you. You've got Lamar Jackson, a really talented football team. I don't want to risk, overtime against your former MVP quarterback, Lamar Jackson. How about now, while I have control, I go for the win on my own terms? And I'll win or lose on this 2-point conversion, but at least I didn't give you another opportunity to beat me in overtime. And I love that mindset. I wish more people had it. We're seeing it happen more and more in the NFL and football world, but I just applaud. I think whether it succeeds or fails, I like that decision-making paradigm. Keep control in your own hands. Go for 2. Control your own destiny. It worked out for the Jaguars. They won 28-27, but I got to say, I would have supported it even if they lost, because you got to respect who you're playing on the other side of that football field. That's Lamar Jackson. That's an NFL MVP. I don't want to go to overtime against Lamar Jackson, and I don't think neither would you in that situation. So I love what the Jaguars did. It was awesome. Finally, dude, Jaguars receiver Zay Jones in this football game had 11 catches for 145 yards. And what's not counted on the stat sheet, by the way, he had the game-winning catch for a 2-point conversion. I love it. I want to give kind of a shout out and a throwback to last year. Does anyone remember the wild overtime game, week 1 of NFL season, of the NFL season 2021 last year? The Raiders played the Baltimore Ravens week 1, Monday Night Football. Game went to overtime. And guess who had the game-winning walk-off touchdown catch in that football game? Zay Jones. So now 2 years in a row, Zay Jones has had the game-winning catch to beat the Baltimore Ravens. I love to see that. And Zay Jones is a cool story, man. He couldn't quite crack the starting lineup with the Raiders. They never quite valued him enough as I thought he could, but he always showed potential. He had a moment here or there. And last year with the Raiders, he had 47 catches with 546 yards receiving and 1 touchdown. This offseason, the Jaguars made kind of a crazy move. They're like, we have confidence in Zay Jones. We're going to give him a 3-year, $30 million deal. They believed in him. They paid him. Great for Zay Jones, by the way. If anyone wants to pay me $30 million to live in Florida where there's no state income tax and the weather's nice, my email's in the description and bio. Hit me up. I would happily take $30 million to live in Florida with no state income tax. It'd be awesome. Anyway, Zay Jones is having, right now, the best year of his entire career. Already 10 games in, he's got more yards and more catches than last year. 58 catches, 562 yards, 1 touchdown catch. And I'm just happy for Zay Jones, but it's kind of weird. Like, 2 years in a row now, Zay Jones has had the game-winning touchdown catch against the Baltimore Ravens with 2 different teams. Kind of funny, kind of weird, kind of cool. Again, the story of this game, though, in my opinion, is that Trevor Lawrence looked like a former number 1 overall pick. It was awesome. You got to be patient with young quarterbacks. Give them time to properly develop. We're so quick to give up and discard them. And I know on Twitter, I know in headlines, it looks great to say, this guy's a bust. He sucks. I can't believe it. But dude, wait. Just wait. 3 years in, you can find. I've been very careful. I've said, hey, Mike White's probably the best quarterback in New York right now, right, with the Jets. And he's probably the best option right now. He's playing better. Zach Wilson looks immature. But I'm not going to call Zach Wilson a bust yet. It's too early. Like, it's just not fair. And I really, really hate how unfair people are towards quarterbacks. It's ridiculous. It's silliness. And I just generally hate it. By the way, the Jaguars are now 4-7. I thought they had a great win over Baltimore. They were coming off their bye week. They beat the Ravens. Well done. Round of applause there. Now, there's 6 games left this year for the Jaguars. They play at Detroit, at Tennessee. They play the Dallas Cowboys. They play at the Jets. They play at Houston. A lot of away games. And then the last game of the year, the Jaguars play at home against Tennessee, who, by the way, in that game, it's likely Tennessee is going to already be in the playoffs. They're going to rest our starters. I can't imagine playing Derrick Henry, week 18, end of the year, when you're already in the playoffs. So I think that's a great opportunity for the Jaguars to win. If the Jaguars go 3-3 the rest of the year, they finish 7-10, I think that's not bad. I think they can even do better, though. Maybe they can go 4-2 in their final 6 games, finish 8-9. That would really impress me. So keep your eye on the Jaguars, how they do the rest of the year. Again, they play at Detroit this week, which is I think a winnable game. Not like a guaranteed winner. There's nothing like that in the NFL, especially not for a team like the Jaguars, who are trying to fight back and be a good football team. But we saw Trevor Lawrence looked really, really good week 12, and I'm like, hey, things are changing. He's getting better. He's probably going to slip up. He's not going to be perfect the rest of the year. But man, I'm telling you, you got to be patient with young quarterbacks, and he's talented. He's making good decisions. He's throwing the ball really, really well. I really like what I saw from Trevor Lawrence week 12, and it made me really hopeful for the future. And it felt really good to see a lot of, people that have just been, he's a bust, he's terrible, can you believe it? Justin Fields is the best quarterback in the draft. Well, hey, by the way, Justin Fields didn't have to play for Urban Meyer last year. I love Justin Fields. I'm a massive supporter. He's looked incredible this year. But when you calculate the development and the timeline for Trevor Lawrence, you have to acknowledge how much of a nightmare last year was and how much it probably set him back development-wise. He lost a year of his career because he had a terrible head coach who put him in a bad situation over and over again. So, I don't know, man. Can we be a little bit more generous when we talk about Trevor Lawrence and maybe stop being so harsh and so ready to just criticize and throw him away? I don't really know why people do that. Again, at the time of the draft, I was actually like, hey, can we slow down the narrative? He's not Andrew Luck. He's really good. But Joe Burrow was a better quarterback prospect. But now it's swung so far the other way, and I can't keep up, man. I'm so tired with all the narratives. It's all one thing. It's all the other. Nothing's black and white in the sports world, or really almost anything is black and white in humanity ever. I think most things are nuanced, and it really kills me how... I know the show is called Strong Opinion Sports. It's become basically moderate opinion sports. I don't know how to feel about that, but I try to be fair, and a lot of people aren't with Trevor Lawrence, and it drives me absolutely nuts.